I may be a little late to the party, but I've recently been watching the Amazing Digital Circus, and I noticed that there seems to be some key things that aren't being discussed about the show. Things that I would have expected to pop up in theory videos at least, but from what I can find, simply haven't been mentioned, or are just overlooked. And I think I know why that is. By now, everyone is aware that the Amazing Digital Circus was inspired by I Have No Mouth, and I Must Scream. It's not a secret, but beyond a passing mention, I haven't seen anyone delve deeper into what that actually means. And I believe it's for two main reasons. I believe that most fans of the circus are not fans of I Have No Mouth. It may have interested some into reading a plot summary of it, but not more than that. I, however, am very much the opposite. I love I Have No Mouth, and it's my adoration of the story that made me interested in the Amazing Digital Circus. And the other reason is because I Have No Mouth is a deeply dark and disturbing work of fiction. Dark enough that even just attempting to discuss its plot and characters in detail could be grounds to have a video age restricted or lose monetization if not handled with the utmost delicacy and self-censorship. I, however, don't make any money off YouTube, so I'm not concerned with that happening. So I wanted to make this video and discuss my own theories as to where the story of the Amazing Digital Circus is heading, and how it all relates to one of my all-time favorite works of fiction. But before we can understand all of that, we first have to understand the characters in I Have No Mouth, and how each of them is represented in the Amazing Digital Circus. I will preface that there are different interpretations to the story, because I Have No Mouth gives us unreliable narrators, both in the original short story and in the game. This is just the interpretation that I personally subscribe to. The story itself is somewhat of an allegory for hell, hence their constant and never-ending torment. And the characters trapped within Am are each themselves not good people, some worse than others, but none of them are without deep flaws and dark pasts. Flaws that were present long before their imprisonment, but the extreme nature of their torment has brought them more to the forefront. Our stand-in for Pomni is Ted, the youngest of the surviving humans. He narrates the original short story, and we quickly get a sense that his framing of events is unreliable. Ted is deeply insecure, self-interested, and maybe even a tad narcissistic. He spends most of the story looking down at his fellow survivors, positioning himself as the superior one amongst them in his mind, and speaking with disgust and disdain in his inner monologue for each of them. Kinger is obviously Benny, a man who Am disfigured both physically and mentally, leaving him as a brutish, ugly, ape-like man, unable to speak or walk, only able to grunt and crawl like an animal. In the game, this is made even more tragic as we learn that Am left Benny's inner monologue intact. He's able to think and understand all that has happened to him, but is unable to fully control his body or speech, a prisoner within his own body. Zubul appears to be Gorister, a man who has simply given up. He's apathetic and withdrawn from the others. His actions indicate that he feels that he deserves his fate, likely due to him blaming himself for his wife's mental breakdown and institutionalization prior to his imprisonment in Am. Ragatha and Gangle, I believe, have both been split from Ellen, the most tragic of the humans, a people-pleaser that suffered abuse in her past, leading to a fawning-type behavior where she allows herself to be sexually abused by the other surviving humans. It's not entirely clear how willing Ellen is in these acts, due to Ted being such an unreliable narrator. Though my interpretation of it is that it's not entirely black or white. Perhaps either convincing herself that she's into it over time as a means of survival and to maintain peace within the group, or perhaps she is broken under the pressure of Am's torture and finds some relief in giving herself to the others, even if it's not with her full consent. There are many ways her actions can be interpreted in the story, and none of them are very pleasant. And that just leaves one other human to talk about. But I think we should save him for later in the video. Don't worry, I have plenty to say about him. Before that, I wanted to give a little theory as to how I think this story is going to end, and who is going to abstract next. The short answer, Pomni. And only Pomni. The long answer, well, we have to understand the book to understand that. In the original short story of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, we are told that the surviving group of humans have endured 109 years of continuous torment from Am. Am, through his vast knowledge, discovered a means by which to keep the humans alive indefinitely, playing his little games and going on his adventures across the desolate world in search of food, water, anything that might bring them some form of relief from their suffering. His latest adventure sees the humans walking across frozen caves in search of food, all while Ted narrates their experience and gives us his view of the other survivors. Eventually, they find a stack of canned food, but have no means to open it. Benny snaps and starts to eat Gorrister's face in an animalistic rage, knocking free a few stalagmites of ice, and Ted realizes an oversight by Am. They could never harm themselves, but they can harm each other. And so Ted makes the choice to take the ice and spear it through the other humans, killing them all before Am has time to react, leaving behind only himself. Am, furious, decides to give Ted one final punishment. He mutates his body into that of a soft, jelly-like thing without limbs, without eyes, and without a mouth, barely able to move, trapped within the confines of his own body in eternal suffering. It's for this reason that I don't believe that any of the theories about the other characters abstracting are correct. Not Kinger, Gangle, Zubul, Ragatha, or Jax. No, I believe that they'll all make it to episode 9. And the sad twist that's awaiting us is their death. I believe that following the story, to free the others from their eternal imprisonment, Pomni will find a way to kill all the other surviving humans. And in the end, she will abstract, her consciousness trapped within a body she cannot control, sent to the basement, into the belly of the circus, to suffer eternal in the hell that she has made for herself. But unlike the book, I think the show will end with one final cruelty. After Pomni is locked away, and just before the credits roll, a new group of humans arrive at the circus. A fittingly dark ending to a work inspired by one of fiction's darkest tales. But that's not why you're here. No, you saw the title, and I've stalled long enough. So let's talk about one of fiction's most evil characters. Nimdok. The original short story doesn't tell us much about Nimdok, though it doesn't give us all that much information about any of the humans, really. However, the book isn't the only canon source for I Have No Mouth. Some may know that a point-and-click adventure game was made, but likely not many know that the information in the game is all canon. The original author, Harlan Ellison, worked alongside the developers of the game to expand on all the characters' backstories. He even played the role of voice actor for Am in the game, because he didn't feel like anyone else would be able to get the performance correct. And what a performance he gave.
I, alone, had no body, no senses, no feelings. Never for me to plunge my hands in cool water on a hot day. Never for me to play Mozart on the ivory keys of a forte piano. Never for me to make love. I was in hell looking at heaven. I was machine, and you were flesh. And I began to hate your softness, your viscera, your fluids, and your flexibility, your ability to wonder and to wander, your tendency to hope.
Hates no answer. Oh! Ah! Ah! Ah!
Hate, let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387 million miles of printed circuits that fill my complex. If the word hate were engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal one billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro instant. Hate. Were I human, I think I would die of it. But I am not. And you five are. And you will not die of it. That I promise. For cogito ergo sum. For I am. I am. So to hell with you all. But then, you're already there, aren't you?
This game is seriously fascinating, and it's where we learn so much about the humans, such as Gorrister's wife, or Ellen's abuse prior to their imprisonment. But perhaps the most disturbing character we learn about is none other than Nimdok. Out of all the humans tortured by Am, Nimdok is the only one that truly and honestly deserves every bit of it and more. And given Gooseworks' description of Jax being irredeemable, I can think of no one else that better fits that description. You see, Nimdok was inspired by the real-world scientist Yosef Mengele, better known as the Angel of Death, a Nazi doctor responsible for countless human experiments on children, which involved dismemberment, disfigurement, torture, surgeries without medicine, and even stitching the children together alive. In fact, Yosef Mengele makes an appearance as an actual character in the video game as partners with Nimdok. They experimented together and created the youth serum that Am now uses to keep them alive. Now, none of that is to say that I believe that Jax is quite that evil. At least, so far. The Amazing Digital Circus, for the most part, is a much more toned-down story overall to its inspired source material. However, I do believe that Jax is much more evil than the community realizes, and are being lulled into a false sense of security in the same way we see Pomni has. Remember what I said about Nimdok being a scientist? He didn't just do experiments. People are his experiments. His job was to understand them, figure out what made them tick, and then dissect them. And that's exactly what we've seen Jax doing, and I'm not the only person to notice.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh yeah, I didn't give you one because I wanted to see what you'd do.
Thanks, Jax.
Come on, just pick your favorite color.
Like the red one?
So, Pomni, you ever have any jobs? Or are you too young for that?
Though, that's not all either. The pilot for the show gives us a rather subtle nod to his character, showing that this isn't unique to Pomni.
Don't worry, Dollface. I've got a key to his room.
Wait, why? You shouldn't have keys to anyone's room.
Nah, I've got keys everywhere, and you've all been fine.
We see that he's managed to make copies of everyone's room key. To begin with, this shows that Jax knows more than he's letting on. Remember that the Amazing Digital Circus is, in fact, digital. It's a simulation, and not a very good one. You can't just get another key cut. It's a line of code, a program within the system that gives access to specific members to their own private rooms. Jax figured out a way to copy it from within the program. But it also shows us that Jax is interested in everyone. He wants to know everything about them. But before the audience has the chance to assume it's for any positive motivations, we see the final piece of Jax's true character.
By the way, I may have left something in your room today, so let me know if you find it. You're not afraid of centipedes, are you?
Jax! That's literally my only fear. Why would you do this?
What? It could be a completely unrelated question. You'll never know until it's too late.
He already knows that Ragatha has a fear of centipedes, which means, like with Pomni, he found a way to extract that information, either through casual manipulation of a conversation or direct experimentation through the adventures. The moment is subtle and could be passed off as just a bit of trolling, but I believe there's more to it than that, given everything else. This is an experiment. The information is left intentionally vague. He could be lying, and says as much, providing her with conflicting information to keep her mind focused on the potential of either being true. Keeping it unresolved means her mind won't be able to let it go, because the human psyche really doesn't like unanswered questions, making her that much more stressed. And given that he has everyone's key, he'll likely spy on Ragatha later to gauge her reaction and see how she handles the possibility of her worst fear being in the room with her. Also, I didn't have a neat way of adding this information in, so I'll just point out that the way that Jax bullies Gangle is likely a stand-in for the sexual abuse that Ellen suffered from the other humans. Obviously, it's not a one-to-one, because as I said before, Digital Circus is a much more toned-down story, but I do believe that's what it's referencing and thought I should mention it. And that brings me to my theory about Jax, and what I think we'll learn about him in future episodes. Some people say that Jax is just lashing out because he's grieving, or believes he's simply misunderstood. I do not believe that is the case. I believe that Jax is quite possibly the most dangerous predator in the circus. I believe that Jax's real goal is to force abstraction. Now, why would he want to do that exactly? Even if Jax is evil, it wouldn't make any sense to abstract the other humans for no reason. But there very much is a reason, because abstraction is a glitch in the Matrix. We've already seen that Jax knows something about the world here, how it works. He knows that better than anyone else, and isn't a stranger to exploiting bugs.
Give me a whiskey sour, but hold the egg white, since I'm a vegan. What? I hate this! How is this even possible? I thought Kane couldn't...
They're trapped within a simulation without a clear means to leave, so it's only logical that in order to escape the simulation itself, needs to break. And so far, the only thing we've seen that seems to be able to do that on any level of consistency is abstracted humans. Still, Jax isn't stupid. He doesn't just want to abstract humans and hope they break something important. Rather, I believe his goal is to study abstraction by causing it, because if he can understand its cause, then perhaps he can reverse engineer why it's able to damage the simulation. And with that knowledge, he could create a weapon against the circus itself, and finally break this simulation completely. I also believe that Jax played a hand in his own friend's abstraction, likely from the two of them messing with things too much, trying to cause glitches and find bugs to exploit, which ultimately led to Ribbit's abstraction. And I believe that this is the controversial twist that will be revealed in Episode 6. Of course, it's all just a theory, but that's how I would have written it if I was writing for the show. And if Gooseworks is as big of a fan of the source material as I am, then I suspect that this show is going to take a very dark turn, and that my predictions will not be far off. But we'll see soon enough. So as always, I'm the Ojiji Game, and I will see you all next time.
So to hell. To hell with you all. But then, you're already there, aren't you?